हेलो एंड वेलकम टू सौरभ्स क्लासेस। मेरा नाम अश्मिता है और आज के क्लास में हम लोग HSEE का जो 2021 का क्वेश्चन पेपर है उसको आज हम सॉल्व करने वाले हैं। तो चलिए स्टार्ट करते हैं आज का क्लास। जैसे कि आप अपने स्क्रीन पे देख सकते हैं, यहाँ पे जो इंफॉर्मेशन, जो रूल्स हैं वो आपको दिया गया है क्वेश्चन पेपर के स्टार्टिंग में। अगर आप फॉलो करेंगे, देख सकते हैं पार्ट 1, आप देख सकते हैं कि पार्ट 1 में लिखा हुआ है कि 144 मल्टीपल चॉइस क्वेश्चंस रहेगा एंड टोटल मार्क्स भी रहेगा 144. Let me show you this portion, that is, here you can see 144 marks written and here also you can see 144 MCQs written. So for 144 MCQs you are getting 144 marks. So in simple words we can say that each of these questions is carrying 1 mark. Okay, let us go back to the discussion. If you give one correct answer, you are going to get +1, and if you do not attempt a particular question, you are going to get nothing. You are not even going to get a negative marking. So you can just like skip any question if you think you do not know the answer. Okay, next let me tell you about the negative marking. Here you have minus 0.25 marks deduction for every incorrect option that you choose. Okay, next, see, the time has been given over here. That is, total time for part 1 is 150 minutes and it starts from 9 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. Okay, this is the normal time schedule. Here you can see the sections which are given. That is, section 1 has English and comprehension skill, section 2 has analytical and quantitative ability. So here you can see on the right side that you have these number of questions, that is 36 and 36. You can see both the sections will have. In section 3 part A you have this general studies portion with Indian economy as the subject with 18 questions you see. In section 3B portion, once again you have general studies with Indian society and culture as your subject. In this you have to answer 18 questions. After that you have section C with general studies world affairs, and here you have 18 questions. And after that you have section 3 general studies on environmental and ecology, where you have 18 questions. All right, so let us move to the questions directly. Here you have a passage, so let us discuss about the passage. Starting with this comprehension, please do follow. Here as you can follow, you see a game of strategy as currently conceived in game theory is a situation in which 2 or more players make choices among available alternatives or moves. So they are talking about some strategies of games and game theories, where they are talking about players making choices and all right. Next you have this portion, that is, the totality of choices determines the outcomes of the game. So basically your choice will lead to the outcome of your game, and it is assumed that the rank order of preferences for the outcomes is different for different players. So basically the outcome is different for different players depending upon their preferences. All right, thus the interests of the players are generally in conflict. So interests are very much different for each one of you, so that's why each of these players' interests are different, hence they are conflicting. Conflicting means they are in a clash, they are always in a clash. Let's move over to this second paragraph of this passage, that is, whether these interests are diametrically like opposed or only partially opposed depends on the type of the game. Okay, Psychologically, most interesting situations arise when the interests of the players are partly coincident and partly opposed. So they are talking about interesting situations and when they arise. So basically, interesting situations arise when there is partly coincidence and there is partly opposition from both sides when they are playing games, because then one can postulate not only a conflict among the players but also inner conflicts within the players. So they are talking about conflicts or clash from the exterior side also, as well as from the internal side also. So you all know that obviously while playing games, players have certain things in their minds, as well as they show certain things on the fields. So there always is a inner conflict going on in their minds, as well as there is conflict going on outside while they are playing. That's it. Let's move over to the next paragraph. Internal conflicts, you see, internal conflicts are always psychologically interesting. What we vaguely call interesting, psychology is in very great measure the psychology of inner conflict. So they are talking about the inner conflict over here. They are describing it in this paragraph. Inner conflict is also held to be an important component of serious literature as distinguished from less serious genres. So they are talking about inner conflict as a part of serious literature. Okay, and it is distinguished, like it is differentiated from the less serious genres. So there are different genres, like of studying, of literature, of all whatever we study or whatever we read. There are different genres for everything. There are horror genres, comedy genres, we all know that. So here they are talking about this inner conflict as a part of serious literature, which is quite different from the less serious genres. Next, the classical tragedy as well as the serious novel reveal the inner conflict of the central figures. So now they are moving over to the explanation of classical tragedy and what happens in those kind of serious novels. Like in classical tragedy as well as in serious novel, the central figures mentioned in the stories are basically having inner conflicts. They're revealing the inner conflicts within them. Do follow the paragraph. The superficial adventure story, on the other hand, depicts only the external conflict. So what is superficial? Superficial means something which goes on outside, the surface, the exterior, we can say. So the superficial adventurous stories mostly depicts only the external conflict, or which we can see through our naked eyes. That we can only see in superficial adventure stories. Okay, but the inner conflict we can never see in superficial adventurous stories. Okay, do follow. That is, the threats to the person with whom the reader identifies them in these stories are exclusively from external obstacles and from the adversaries who create them. So now what are external conflicts? Whatever we can see from outside, whatever clash we see through our eyes, we see them in front of us, that we can consider as external conflict. And here they are talking about external conflict as threats to the person with whom the reader identifies in his stories. Like these external conflicts are like external obstacles, and you can also see who creates these kind of obstacles from outside, because external conflicts, the cause and the effect, everything can be seen, but internal conflicts, we cannot see what is going on inside the mind of a person. On the most primitive level, this sort of external conflict is psychologically empty. So they are talking about the external conflict being psychologically empty, because we can see everything what's going on, what has caused it, what is its effect. So psychologically, what is interesting? The internal conflict is quite interesting because it arouses some sort of excitement within us, that what is leading to this conflict. So that is what the passage is trying to say. Okay, let's follow. In the fisticuffs between the protagonists of good and evil, no psychological problems are involved, or at any rate, none are depicted in juvenile representations or conflict. So they're talking about some sort of activities which below the 18-year-old uh, like people might have done, that is juvenile, we term them. And these kind of psychological problems are only involved when these people are doing something evil in their nascent ages. Okay. Next, the detective story, the adult analog of a juvenile adventure tale, has at times been described as a glorification of intellectualized conflict. So they're again coming back to the detective story with the adult analog of a juvenile adventure tale. They are talking about a juvenile adventure tale. So basically about a person who is below the age of 18 who has committed crime, and it's about his adventure tale, who has at times been described as a glorification of intellectualized conflict. So they are talking about the juvenile committing crimes because of his because of his intellectualized conflict that was going on in his mind. So they are actually terming conflict as intellectualized, means something which is quite intelligent, something which is quite witty and wise and all those. Okay. But the conflict is psychologically interesting only to the extent that it contains irrational components such as tactical error on the criminal's part, or the detective's insight into some psychological quirk of the criminal. So they are talking about that conflict is psychologically interesting when there are certain irrational components. Now, what are irrational components over here? Irrational means something which is not logically possible, or something which cannot be logically reasonable. Okay. So when there are irrational components such as tactical error means some sort of silly error on the part of the criminal, or from the detective's insight, we call it, into some psychological quirk of the criminal. Okay, so some sort of mistakes that the criminal does, because of which he or she gets caught. So that is like quite irrational, or you can say that is quite a tactical error that he or she does. Conflict conducted in perfectly rational manner is psychologically not very interesting. So they are talking about conflict being caused in a logical way or a reasonable way is not quite interesting. Okay, they are terming conflict, or they are terming any kind of crime being part of a irrational component, then only that will become interesting. If a person does crime with reasoning, with like logical explanation, then that crime won't be interesting. That is what they are trying to say. Psychologically, that won't be quite interesting, because if we know the reason behind the crime, then it would become quite dull, then the case would become dull. If we come to know that this crime has been done with some sort of irrational explanation, that is no proper reasoning, or no proper evidence has been found, or no proper cause or motive behind the crime has been found, then it is psychologically interesting. Okay, let's move over to the next part. Conflict conducted in a perfectly rational manner is psychologically not very interesting. That is what I just told you all. In short, a pure conflict of interest, although it offers a wealth of interesting conceptual problems, is not interesting psychologically. In short, a pure conflict of interest, although it offers a wealth of interesting conceptual problems, is not interesting psychologically, except to the extent that its conduct departs from rational norms. So they are talking about a pure conflict of interest, which may offer quite interesting conceptual problems, but it is not interesting psychologically until and unless it is irrational. Like if any like if any crime is done with irrational motive, with a motive which cannot be explained in a logical sense or in a reasonable sense, then definitely that is psychologically interesting. So you all might have followed this passage. That was the entire discussion about this passage. You got to know what's the main topic for it. It's all about psychology and game theory and all those things about clash, internal conflict and external conflict. Those are the major themes over here. Now, the first question. Do follow it, please. What determines the outcome of the game according to the game theory? Okay, so over here, they are talking about sum of choices. We have read in the passage that it's actually from the sum of choices only that that the players have got the outcome of their game. That is, you see here, we have got it, the totality of choices. So you have got the answer, that is number 1 would be the correct option. So here number 1 would be the correct option. Sum of choices means total of all the choices would be the correct option. That is, psychology of individual players is actually determining the outcome of the game. Okay, but let us check the other options also, because we need to know the new vocabs that are out here. So number 2, you all can understand psychology of individual players, like what they think and how they think and all. Let us move over to this third point, that is external impediments. Now, what are impediments? Impediments means some sort of obstacle or hindrance, okay? Some sort of hurdle, okay? Number 4, they are talking about internal irresolution. So what do you understand by irresolution? Irresolution means some sort of uncertainty, something which is not certain, okay, quite confusing, quite uncertain. That's it. So you have come to know about 2 new words over here, and the correct answer was sum of choices. All right, let's move over to the next question. When is the situation most interesting psychologically according to game theory? Okay, so we have read in the passage that when there is partial coincidence and when there is certain opposition, then only the situation or the game theory is psychologically interesting. Okay, I'm showing you the portion where this is written. You see over here in the second paragraph, if you can follow, that most interesting situation arise when the interests of the players are partly coincident and partly opposed. You see, you got your answer from here. So we have got number 3 to be the correct answer. All right. Okay, but let us check the other options also, because we can see quite new words are there. So let us know the meanings. Number 1, you see the sparring between good and evil. Now, what is sparring? Sparring means fighting. You see, fighting or juggling between good and evil. That is sparring. So that is sparring. Okay, next, engaging in adventure story. You all can understand that. What about psychological liquidation? What is liquidation? Liquidation basically means freeing a person or a patient from some sort of painful situation. All right. So this is psychological liquidation. So psychologically you are freeing a person from a very painful situation. That is psychological liquidation. So you have come to know about new words from this question. Let's move over to the next question now. See, over here you can see number 3 question. What genres of literature reveal the inner conflict according to the game theory? What genres they are talking about reveal the inner conflict according to the game theory? So we have come across classical tragedy and serious novel in the passage when we were reading. So number 2 would be the correct option, because they are relating to game theory. All right. If they talked about psychology and juvenile things and all, then you could have selected number 4. But just because they are talking about inner conflict according to game theory, you have to select number 2 as the correct option. Okay. I'll be showing you where you can get this answer. See, over here you will get the classical tragedy as well as the serious novel reveals the inner conflict of the central figures. So that is the answer. So number 2 was the correct answer. Let's move over to the next question, that is question number 4. What subgenre in literature exemplifies cerebral confusion? So they are talking about a subgenre in literature which will exemplify cerebral confusion. Now, talking about the question, what is exemplify? Exemplify means to give an example, or you can say to illustrate or to show. Okay, so you have to tell which subgenre gives the example of cerebral confusion. Now let me show you where you will get this answer. The correct answer over here would be number 4, that is detective story. Why? Because first of all, we did not come across adult literature in this paragraph. We even did not come across adolescent literature over here. So what did we come across in the paragraph? It's adventure tale. So what we have come across in this paragraph is adventure tale and detective story. So why did I choose detective story? Here, when we were reading about the adventure tale, the paragraph has itself told us that adventure tale actually talks about the external conflicts or external obstacles that goes on in a person's life or in a person's head. Okay, we are here talking about cerebral confusion. So cerebral confusion means something which goes on inside our head, and that can only be illustrated through a detective story. So your correct answer would be number 4. All right, let us move over to the next question, that is question number 5, which says, what do irrational components contribute to conflict? So first of all, what is irrational component? Irrational means something which cannot be backed by any logic or reason. All right. So how does these irrational components contribute to conflict? Conflict means clash. All right. You all know conflict means clash and fight and all those. Okay. So the correct option would be number 2, that is psychological interest. Now, why did I choose psychological interest? It is because any kind of irrational components will definitely lead to conflict, because it cannot be backed by any reason. The word itself says that it doesn't have any logic or reason. So these irrational components will actually lead to psychological interest in conflicts, because we don't know what's going on inside the head of a person while having the conflict or clash. Okay, so number 2 would be the correct option. And obviously we haven't come across these options like option number A or option number C or number 4. Anyway, we haven't come across number 1 in the passage, number 3 in the passage, and number 4 in the passage. Nothing of these sort were mentioned in the passage. So we can consider number 2 to be the correct option. So that's it. So that was the entire discussion for today's class. We have completed this comprehension passage discussion. We are going to meet once again in our other classes and solve the next set of questions. So do follow this question paper solution one by one. If you want to prepare like this for your exams, then you can join our classes at Saurabh Sir's classes. We are going to provide you with live lectures, recorded lectures, portal access, which will be available to all the enrolled candidates 24/7. We will be providing you with solutions of the previous year's question papers, unsolved papers, sample papers, and we will also provide you with solved study materials which will be provided at your doorstep. If you need crash course, we are going to provide you with that. Scholarship facilities are also available. If you need to join our classes, if you need to prepare for any kind of entrance exam or any kind of competitive exam, do call us at the number which is provided at the beginning of the video, as well as in the description box you will get the contact number as well as the website link. That is www.saurabhsysclasses.com. That's the official website link, and you can get that link in the beginning of that the video, also in the description box below. So that's it for today's class, and let me tell you, mock tests would be available, worksheets after every session would be available. So in order to get all these benefits, do enroll in our classes. That was the entire discussion for today's class. We are going to meet once again in our next classes with more such discussions.